Hi guys! Today I am reading from Joey Pigza Swallowed the Key by Jack Gantos, Chapter 12. Chapter 12 is called Pittsburgh. After I had talked to Mom, Special Ed spoke with her about going the next day to the hospital in Pittsburgh. When she came home from work that night, she had new slacks and shirt outfit for me. But it was for the hospital visit. "I want you to look good," she said, and examined my head. I always feel best when I look good. Early the next morning, when it was still dark, we got all cleaned up and I dressed in my old jeans and a Penn State t-shirt for the bus ride. I took my meds and Mom drank coffee while she made sandwiches and packed them in our travel bags. By then, the taxi was blowing its horn, and once we got in, it took us to the bus station. We were the first in line. After the driver opened the passenger door, we went up the steps. I had been on school buses and city buses and, of course, the special ed bus. But I had never been on a big Greyhound bus before, and I was very excited just because it was a bus, but because it was named after a dog. We had our choice of where to sit. I wanted to sit all the way in the back and have the whole long seat. "No," Mom said. "The bathroom is back there." She pointed at the tiny silver room. "And they smell funny. Get a spot in the middle for the best ride." "How do you know?" "Your dad and I took a lot of buses," she said. "We went to Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Baltimore, all over. He was always on the move." "Do you think he's in Pittsburgh?" I asked. "Honey, he could be on the moon." "I just don't know," she said in a voice that didn't want to talk about it. "But if he is, don't get your hopes up about bumping into your father, Joey," she said. "He wouldn't know you if he saw you." It hurt to think he wouldn't know me from any other kid, so I tried not to think about him, or even Grandma. Already I had enough scary thoughts to worry me about my brain being messed up, so I tried to think of something good like Mom told me to do. Just one good thing. I leaned my head against the glass and fell asleep. That was the best I could do. When I woke up, Mom wanted to know if I was hungry. I was. So she got the food, and I opened the dog book, which I had brought with me. "Don't you think you should do your homework first?" she asked, but it was more of an order. "After we eat," I begged, "then you can help me." "Okay," she said, and spread out the paper towels and sandwiches on her lap. "But no tricks. You have to keep up like Mrs. Maxey said." I flipped through the pages of dogs. "I like this one," I said, pointing at a Chinese crested. "It only has fur on the tip-top of its head," she said, "like a little troll doll." I didn't care about that. "This is the puppy I really want," I said, and pointed to a brown Chihuahua. "Is there a Joey puppy in there?" she asked, then leaned over to kiss me, and tried to be sneaky and checked my bald spot again. "I know how to be your puppy," I said, and jerked my head away. "After you were gone, I started asking Grandma when you were coming back, and she said, 'Any day now, I suspect.' And she set a chair in the front room window, and every evening I would sit there with my toys and stuffed animals and books, and I'd wait. Grandma wouldn't let me out of my chair, so I stood on it, kneeled on the seat, scooched it around backwards, and rode it like a horse. And all the time, I kept my eye on the sidewalk, looking for you. And every now and again, a woman selling cookies or magazines or church raffle tickets would come up the sidewalk, and I'd spring for it and I'd flatten my face against the glass window. But I didn't know what to look for, because I didn't remember what you looked like. Remember? So I yelled out to Grandma, 'Is that my mom?' 'Joey,' Mom said, 'is this going to be about Grandma treating you bad?' 'Yes,' I said. 'You've told me this before, and it hurts me to hear it over and over,' she said. So I shut up. But it was the kind of story that doesn't go away after the first time you tell it. So you have to tell it over and over until it goes away for good. If it ever can. I looked out the window and thought of Special Ed and acted in my mind like I was speaking to him, because I hadn't told him yet, but I planned to do so. Grandma would tease me all the time while I waited at the window for Mom. 'Look at you,' she'd say. 'You're like a little puppy.' And she made me do puppy tricks. Roll over, she'd command, and I'd get on the floor and roll over and over until I bumped into the wall. Sit up, she'd shout and clap her hands, and I would, with my little arms up in front of my face and my wrists curled down like paws. Bark, she'd say, and if I didn't, she'd get the fly swatter and swat me across the bottom until I sounded like a pet store full of dogs. There was one command I did like. Beg, she'd snap, and I'd begin to whine like a dog, going, please, 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 until she'd give me a hard candy that she'd swiped by the handful from the fishbowl of free candy at the bank, where she cashed her Social Security check. I loved that candy, and I'd beg and beg until I got all of it. Sometimes she'd get so mad at me for not being good, she'd pretend that the phone rang, and she'd hold it to her ear and say, yes. Why, yes. Oh, that is so wonderful that you are coming home. When? Tonight? Oh, Joey will be so excited. So excited. And I was. I'd be pulling on the phone cord trying to get the receiver so I could yell, hurry up, into it. But Grandma would hold it tight and stiff-arm me with her other hand. And then she'd say, what? You want him to take a bath and sit nice and still and not fidget in his seat? Okay, we'll try. Then she'd set the receiver down, and I'd pick it up and yell, Mom! Into it, but she'd already hung up. Now, don't let your mom down, Grandma would say. And I'd run to the bathroom and scrub myself red, and when I was perfectly clean, I'd put on my pajamas and sat in the window chair, and if I'd wiggle just a little tiny bit, Grandma would say from across the room, where she was doing crossword puzzles, see? I just saw her walk by, and she saw that you were not sitting still, and she just kept on walking, because your mom does not want to come home to a bad boy. That's not true, I'd scream, and I'd get so nervous I'd pull my hair out. Not fistfuls, but one little hair at a time, until I had a round bald patches on my head. I knew it was bad, but I couldn't help it, and then Grandma would pick up the phone again and say, what? You aren't coming back until he learns not to pull his hair out like an idiot? Okay, I'll tell him. Then she'd hang up and say to me, did you hear that, Joey? And by then, I'd be crying and crying because I hated myself so much for not being able to sit still and keep my hands in my lap. And then Grandma would say into the phone again, but you are willing to try again tomorrow night? Oh, that is so nice of you, dear. You are a saint to love this boy the way you do. I'll see to it that he is in his chair by the window. Yes, I'll tell him that you'll be passing by to check on him, and if he is sitting still, you will come and knock on the door. So the next night I'd start off sitting in the chair twiddling my thumbs, and when any woman walked down the street, I'd straighten up and sit real still. But when the woman passed by, I'd slump back because I was being good, but for the wrong woman. And I'd waved and I smiled so much at strange women that once I was playing on the front porch and a woman passed by and pointed at me and said to her kid, look, there is that nice boy who sits in the window and waves to everyone. So I waved back and her daughter said, what's wrong with his head? Because I had those shiny little spots that looked like holes. I turned away from staring out the bus window and from thinking of Grandma in the past and looked at Mom, who was filing her nails. Can I talk to you again? I asked. Only if you tell me something new, she said. Okay, one of the reasons I want to be a puppy is because it will wait for me in the window every day, and every day I will come home to it. You didn't come home to me, but I promise I'll come home to it. I'll take care of it because I don't want it to feel like I did. So if the test on my brain is good, then I should get a puppy because of a celebration. And if the test of my brain is bad, I should get one because you have to be really nice to me, because then it'll be proven that I'm messed up in the head and nobody can fix it. Either way, I should get a dog. When I finished talking, her head was tilted forward against the back of the seat, because everything I said was all in her brain like a heavy weight, and she had to rest it for a minute. But I didn't care. Special Ed said I might get mad at her someday, and he was right. So why, after all I put you through, do you still love me? She finally said, and slipped the nail file into her purse. Why? I don't know why, I said. I just do. You're my mom, and I do. Anyway, you love me, and I'm messed up in the head for life. Don't think that, she said, and kissed me on the side of the face, then began to straighten my shirt and push back my hair as if looking better would mean I was better. And the puppy? I asked. I think you know that once we get back home we can get one. Yes, I said, and pumped my fist. Yes, 'cause Maria has one, and I don't want to have to wait until someone cuts off my nose to get one. I'm sure Maria is a very nice girl, Mom said. So no more silly talk about her, okay? Okay, I said, and began to flip through the dog book again. We'll find a cure for you, Joey, Mom said. No, you won't, I replied. There is no cure. Well, you're not doomed, she said sarcastically. I know, I said, but there is no cure. The doctor in special ed said so. I don't mean cure like you take a pill and it all goes away, she said. Then say what you mean, I said, and I could feel myself slipping away because suddenly I didn't want to sit in my seat and everything outside the window became really blurry, and I could feel my brain getting stuck on one thought. You know what I mean. Say what you mean. You know what I mean, I said again, as if repeating that thought would give me a running head start into getting the next thought going. But I was stuck in a rut. You know what I mean, I repeated a little louder and a little meaner. You know what I mean. Come on, Mom whispered and grabbed my hand. Let's go back to the bathroom just for a minute. She pulled me out of the seat and tightened her grip on my hand as she dragged me down the aisle, and I kept bouncing from side to side and touching people. Sorry, Mom kept saying to them. Sorry. And for a second I thought, she is sorry. She is always sorry. When we got to the bathroom, it was so small, Mom opened the door and sat down on the toilet lid, and I leaned in over her. She pulled the door closed against my butt and latched it, then unzipped her purse. She took out my medicine, and I opened my mouth. Be my good little baby bird, she said quietly, and slipped the pill onto my tongue. We stayed that way, and as the bus rumbled down the road, it felt like the whole planet was loose and was bouncing down a long flight of steps. I have a confession to make, Mom finally said. What? There was a time where I wanted to be with you, but I wasn't in shape to return. I was drinking with your father and wasn't taking good care of myself. So when I decided to return, I would walk by the house and try to see you because it would give me extra strength to pull myself together. But I swear, I never saw you sitting in the window, and I never knew what Grandma was making you do. I put my cheek down on the top of her head and smelled her hair, because she had so many beauty supplies it always smelled sweet and creamy. We stayed that way until the bus stopped and the driver knocked on the door. Pittsburgh, he said, come on out. And that's the end of chapter 12. We're going to see what happens in chapter 13.